Hello and welcome to today's video. This time we're going to be taking a look through another couple of boxes of large format books and hardbacks. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Okay then, so not actually that large. It's a little mini hardback graphic novel actually by Daniel Clowes, an artist I really like. Very distinctive style of artwork, as you can see, and certainly one of my favourites. And I believe this is the same guy that did the Jimmy Corrigan books, which are absolutely fantastic. He Ghost World, David Boring, 8 Ball, and Art School Confidential. So there we are. Yeah, great sort of artist and designer. So I bought this one second hand quite a while back. It really is just mainly along the top edge there. So I've got a real mixture of books to show you today. Some price guides and like reference books, which it's just what's come next. I pulled out 2 full boxes of comic boxes of large format books. We've got quite a pile to get through. And I reckon I've got about the same again, and then we're done on the large format books. They are all done and dusted at that point, but I've got quite a lot of arty books and things like that to go through on the next video. But today, as I said, loads and loads of price guides and things like that. This is a guide to like modern firsts. It's not, at the time, this was probably the best sort of book of its kind out there, and it's quite handy for the bibliographies rather than the actual prices. The prices you take with a pinch of salt, in all honesty, but for the actual bibliography listings of a particular author, you know, absolutely fantastic. And I don't really know how, if this was updated that often beyond the one that I've got here, but I'm certainly glad to have it. But like a lot of these, it's really just picked up sort of surface dust over the years. I mean, I would have got this one when it came out, so back in 2006. So, you know, it's almost 20 years old, but really handy. Someone like John Creasy, for example, you could use this to go through and get an entire sort of bibliography of all of Creasy's work. And as you can see, he was Mr. Prolific, wasn't he? Absolutely fantastic. So from that point of view, I think absolutely priceless. Here's another great one. This was on this was published by Book and Magazine Collector, and this was their special on children's books. And once again, fantastic for bibliographies. So very much sort of recommended. If you haven't already got one of these, it's worth picking one up. Once again, the prices are way out, and they're just ridiculous. But as a guide to an author's output, I think very valuable. You know, so again, really these aren't going to be too bad. It's just going to be surface dust along the edges, which is coming up not too bad. I've got one really bad one, which I'm not sure we're going to do much with, but we'll get to that in a moment. This is quite a good one, and this was Green's Guide to Collecting TV, Music and Comic Book Annuals. And these are the, if you're watching in the States, in the UK we have this phenomenon of the Kids Annual, and there were hundreds and hundreds of thousands, in fact, and a tradition that started pre-war and carried on to this day. It still carries on, and you can see all the major sort of series were covered here, and this is like a guide to those. Absolutely fantastic. The pricing is in UK pounds and US dollars, but as pricing is a bit irrelevant nowadays, you know, you get a guide to it. But yeah, not a bad little one at all, that one. So that's worth having. I'm trying to remember, I'm sure they did one, and I may even have it today, of TV and of TV Time paperbacks, possibly. I'm trying to think if I have got that or not. This is a great one. This was, I think, the 3rd or 4th edition of Joseph Connolly's Modern First Editions. Absolutely fantastic book. Really great. Yeah, sort of a precursor to the first editions. Connolly himself, there he is, went on and became an author. But this was always sort of the guidebook for a long time. And let's just have a flick through. I remember it being fairly well illustrated, and the little write-ups on each author were pretty nice as well. But there's really not a lot that this guy hasn't got, but I'd say some of the authors weren't quite perhaps as collectible as they were when this was published. But yeah, very nice nice book here. A set of the Bond books, beautiful. Yeah. So yeah, here he's actually, I've never read him, but here he's actually he is a really great writer. Big fan of Woodhouse. I've got one of his other books actually on P.G. Woodhouse. But yeah, I'm going to give all these a polish as well when we've given them the brush up. So I'm going to take out any internal marks, not that there's been any yet. Then we'll go through and give them a polish. This one I got fairly recently. In fact, it was a present just a few years ago. It's the Overstreet Guide to Star Wars Collectibles. So, really great book, this. Packed with stuff, as you can see. Loads of it. So, yeah, really great book. That was given to me as a present by a friend of mine for my birthday. So that, I said, not a lot wrong with that because it's really modern. This is great. This is a blast from the past. This is the UK comic book price guide. This was the last one done by Duncan McAlpine. This was number 8. I think from about number 4 or 5, I'd started contributing to it. So I'd done pieces on Star Wars figures. I seem to recall. In fact, here it is. Look, here's Star Wars action figure price guide. That was done at Jules Brown. That was my business partner, George. And Purple Haze Comics. There we are. Oh, how the prices have changed. Yeah, there we are. And I think what was happening was, back then, action figures were becoming more and more a thing for comic and collectors shops to be stocking, because there was a lot of money to be made in them, you know. But I knew Duncan very well at one point. He was a really nice, still is a really nice guy. I don't think he's passed away or anything. Fantastic Golden Age comic collection that he used to have himself. I assume he's still got it. Absolutely fantastic. Spin Again. This was a nice book. I seem to remember this was remaindered, but this is full of vintage board games. Great book, this. Not all TV related, some like generic stuff. There's the original Mousetrap, which I do actually own a copy of that one. And my friend George, we've on my other channel, we filmed his Doctor Who collection. He has probably got 200 board games, mostly TV related ones. Absolutely fantastic. So we're going to make that a focus of a couple of future videos when we get around to it. Let's see, this one's great, isn't it? Obviously they're American board games. I don't think there's any British stuff in here. Good stuff, eh? What a great book, this one. I'm sure it's quite easy to get hold of. I don't think it's difficult, but yeah, Spin Again. There is another quite iconic book. So before we had the Steve Sansweet Star Wars guides, this one came out. This was published by the editors of Tomart's Action Figure Digest, and this was the very first one, Tien Tombush, and it touches on Star Wars, but it's just general science fiction action figures and toys and collectibles. Absolutely fantastic. Really great. Absolutely loved this when it first came out. Read it to death. The same with the Star Wars one, which we'll see in a minute. But yeah, some very groovy stuff here. I'm not sure how easy these Tomart books would be to get nowadays. I've never looked them up because I just bought them when they came out. We used to sell them in my shop and sold quite a lot of them. They were a staple. They weren't cheap, but they were great books to have. Here's another one. This is actually a Schiffer one. I'm not sure how good. These ones are usually of a sort of questionable quality, shall we say, but this one doesn't look too bad. I've got a couple like this for The Simpsons, in actual fact, the Schiffer ones. They're alright, they just take a slightly different approach to things. So it's not, they're not trying to be authoritative and cover everything. It's just like best of sometimes, you know. There we are. So we'll give all these a polish in a while. This was, is this another shape? No, this is Kraus Publications, A Universe of Star Wars Collectibles, 2nd edition. So I think this is probably going to be along a similar line. They're a bit more comprehensive by the look of it. But, you know, I'm a big Star Wars collector, and I like to collect stuff which isn't actually just toys. I like to collect the oddball stuff, like toothbrushes and things like that. It's just how I like toiletries, stationery. I like all that stuff. It's nice, and it's nowhere near as expensive to collect as the figures. And I think, you know, collecting the action figures these days is just well, I wouldn't know where to start if I was trying to start collecting these. That had a bit of dust on it. Okay, so now we go on to the action figure collectibles, Tomart's Encyclopedia and Price Guide to Action Figure Collectibles. There's 3 volumes of these, and they're all very, very similar, and absolutely priceless books. They're just fantastic, really, really comprehensive, absolutely amazing. And the Tomart archive was being put together right back in the 80s, and it really is quite something. It's a shame Tomart Action Figure Price Guide, or Action Figure Digest rather, used to be such a great magazine, and I think it was one of those ones that was a victim of the internet, you know. Here's the first volume here, 18 to Ginger. These books are a little bit out of order as I packed them into the boxes, but we have got a couple of big piles, and we still haven't done pile number 1 yet, so just give you an idea of what we've got to go through. But these were, as I said, these 2 boxes that I brought down today. I've got 2 more boxes, I estimate, and then that'll be all these sort of large format books cleaned up as good as possible. And then we'll be on in my office room. I've then got like modern sort of normal sized hardbacks, sort of first editions and stuff, but of a more modern nature, not really vintage. So, and also my sort of arty books. So that is what we've got left to do, sort of large format book wise. So whether we'll do those next week or not, I'm not sure. It depends on how much time I get. And then we'll obviously head back into the world of Pan and Penguin. Of which we still have many, many paperbacks to get through. So there's the 2 Tomart books. This is the first one. They're absolutely fantastic. This one, I would say, kicked off Star Wars collecting in the late 90s in a big, big way. And when this book came out, we sold hundreds of it in Purple Haze. We sold hundreds of it. We had a huge pile upon publication, like 50. And, you know, we had people pre-ordering it. I mean, it was just bananas. When this book came in, we were just over the moon. It really is just incredible. The most comprehensive book ever on Star Wars collectibles at that time. And as I said, this just started off for a lot of people, the Star Wars collecting craze, you know, was this very book by Steve Sansweet. Although we will have a look at his earlier book before that, which arguably started Star Wars collecting as a thing anyway, you know. Now this is the 2nd edition. This is actually the originals for a price guide that I put together, which was the Purple Haze Price Guide to Star Wars Action. That's the original ones from 1995. Can't clean those, of course, so they'll go back in the archive, but I have got a finished edition of that. And anyway, this was the second one, so this was the follow-up to the one we've just seen. Came out a few years later. Included a lot more of the new stuff, because Star Wars was back in a big way then, you know, the 1990s. And obviously it was a chance to sort out any sort of corrections, really, you know. Okay, and then the last one for the first part was this. This is once again Steve Sansweet. It was published by is it Virgin? No, Chronicle Books. Yeah, Chronicle Books in the States. And this is the Action Figure Archive. Once again, an absolutely beautiful tome, and an essential if you're sort of collecting the original line, really. I mean, I know there are better books out there now, These sort of books have been superseded, but back in the 90s, the detail on these there really wasn't anything else out there like it, and consequently they were real highlights, and we sold quite a lot of copies of these. Absolutely fantastic, really. Steve Sansweet single-handedly sort of moulded Star Wars collecting as it is today, really. Perhaps not with stuff like graded figures and things like that, but just collecting Star Wars in general was down to him, and him pushing it as a thing and keeping the flame alive when a lot of other sort of bigger companies have pretty much given up on it, Anyway, there we are. So that's the first pile. We got another similar pile to get through, but I want to give these all a good polish. There was nothing. These are all fairly modern books. We got some older stuff to look at in a minute, but I want to give these all a polish now. So let's get started. Okay, so this one, for example, got a little bit of muck or something on it. So got a clean bit of cloth here, and there we are. That bit of muck's come straight up. So I think in a lot of cases, all we're going to be really doing is getting off some of the surface muck. There will be some of these that are going to require quite a bit more than that, but in a lot of cases this is just giving them their first ever test drive or clean up service, as it were, in best part of 25 years. So they'll all benefit from having the once over, I think. Biggest issue as usual with these is going to be having the room to actually give them all a polish. But as you can see, with a lot of these, they've been used. They had a practical use, and certainly this one, when I had my shop, I used to refer to it all the time. With the Tomark books, they gave each item a unique number. So quite often people would advertise and they'd have a listing, and it would have the back then the Tomark number. Nowadays, of course, things have changed a bit, but so it was back in the day. That's how much of an influence these books had on the collecting market, really. These aren't too bad. Just got a bit of wear, a bit of handling dirt, as it were, but nothing too bad. Got to admit, the stuff that I've actually done and cleaned in the office, the large front books, now that they're all done and they've sort of been re-A to Z'd as well as I've been going along, a bit like these will be, they look absolutely fantastic. So I'm really, really pleased. And when I've finished the last video, which will be the last of my large format books, I'll do like a shelf tour of the whole lot, so you can see just how good they look. And then I'll show you what I've got left to do in the realm of like hardback fiction, which will be a different thing, because I'm not intending to put dust wrapper plastic sleeves on all my normal hardbacks. It's just too big a job. It would take too long. But they do all need a clean along the top edges and things like that. So that very much needs to be done. so far I wouldn't say we've had any challenges cleaning wise, or any that have been particularly dirty, but I think there might be some more in the next little batch we got to go through that'll benefit a bit more from a clean. But even so, at least I can safely say we've been through all the large format books, which is what I'm looking to do. Spin again. This is a great book. I said I was sure at the time it was like in the remainder bookshops, it was like cheap, like, you know, $1.99 or something like that. The problem with being in the UK, of course, is although, you know, back in the early like 90s, I didn't realise it was Chronicle. Back in the early 90s, getting stuff sent over from America was so much cheaper than it is today, and you know, it was much more tempting. And also the pound against the dollar, you know, a pound bought a bit more dollars than it does today, so things have very, very much changed, and not for the better, unfortunately, in that regard, you know. I remember now, the other thing we used to do for this was like a market report of which books were hot, which ones were cold. I remember we did really well with the X-Files by Topps when that first came out, because we were big fans of the show at the start, and we always had absolutely stacks of all the issues, and we really read the market well and absolutely cleaned up at the time. Right, now this one definitely was looking quite worn. Well, not warm, but just dirty, really, just dirty. So this is going to really, really benefit from. I read this book to death. It was almost like a Bible for the collector, you know, it really was. You have Book and Magazine Collector, you know, the little magazine, but this was, for a long, long time, it was the book to have, you know, for like modern first editions. It just was great. I still think there's a market for like a more up-to-date version of this, but the problem is the internet has changed absolutely everything, and it's just not, you know, book collecting is just not what it was. But these are not, I don't think these are anything like collectible books in their own right, but they are fantastic reference tools, this series, and I certainly wouldn't be without them. In fact, I know a book dealer who had all the different editions of this and kept them all, because they all had sort of different bits of information in, which I thought was very interesting. This one, if you can track it down, is really good. I don't think this has ever been surpassed, the guide to the British Annuals. There are a couple of websites which focus on annuals, and if it's something they haven't got in their own collections, they do actually show a photograph of it. So I'm trying to remember the chap's name, but it's really easy to find. If you're looking up any sort of British annuals and stuff, you'll come across it. And he's very, very good for that sort of stuff as well. But I am sure there's a companion volume to that with paperback TV tie-ins, and it may be in with my sort of dirty there, in with my paperback reference books up in the paperback area. Yeah, so just little marks on the back here like this, where the book has been read lots of times, just giving it that little clean to get it back to A1, which is how we like it. Good as new. Virtually. Yeah, this one warranted staying in the collection. It's more comprehensive than the hardback one because it's got more in it. But it really is only useful now for bibliographies, and once again, a lot of that you can get online now. But this does sort of say if the books are in wrappers and things like that, which is quite handy. But I don't know if it got updated beyond this 2006-2007 edition. I really don't know. And then here's that last one. Still got a bit of dust along the top, but it's gone in. I can't get that off, sadly. Anyway, that's pile number one, which is quite an interesting pile. Right, let's do it all again. So I've never really covered it on either of my channels, but I'm a big fan of the 1951 Festival of Britain, and we've got a few books today which are actually about the 51 festival. My mum and dad went to it. They were children at the time, youngsters, and they went along to it, and pretty much most of the UK visited it. It was on the South Bank in London, and after the exhibition was opened, it was around for about a year. Then all the exhibits were demolished, except Festival Hall, which is still around today. But the design of it, everything about the Festival of Britain, there's something I can't put my finger on, but I just love the design of it. The logo there was designed by Abraham Games, and every single aspect of sort of British life was touched by it. I absolutely love it. I would have loved to have gone, and there's a whole host of collectibles related to it, and I've got some in my collection, which maybe I'll do a video on at some point. Here's another favourite of mine. So Edward Bawden. Now he was a British designer and artist, and he's one of my all-time favourites. I just love his style of artwork. He did stuff for the London Underground. He did pottery here. Lots of book covers for Faber and Faber was his big thing as well. Very, very nice. Did lots for Penguin. Beautiful King Penguin he did called what is that called? Life in an English Village, which is superb. He did a lovely puffin picture book on the Arabs, it's called, which I've got in hardback, which is lovely. Yeah, stuff for Kew Gardens, stuff for the London Underground. Anyway, this is just a little book celebrating some of his great design work. And this is on Bawden and Eric Revelius, two great designers. Here's another book looking at the Festival of Britain, how the 1951 Festival of Britain shaped the modern age. Of course, there was an 1851 festival, and this was the 100-year one, and it was it was brought about to basically after the war. Britain was for a long time was still suffering with rationing, and it was a way to try and lift the spirits of the British public, really. Here's another one in that same series. This is Design again, and it's the Festival of Britain edition. This is just great, this book, honestly. I just love it. It's full of festival memorabilia. Just fantastic. But it's all quite pricey, little like the tube map that came out for the festivals, like 20 quid, little things like that. But you could easily get and create a shelf of quite nice memorabilia, like pin badges and stuff like that, without too much trouble. And I've been tempted many times to go down that route, and I haven't. I think I've resisted. Here's the oldest book I've got on the Festival of Britain. This one was, is it David and Thames and Hudson? That's right. This one does exist in hardback as well, but it's a fantastic book to get. It's about £20 to £25 now. It came out in the mid-1970s, and this was the first real retrospective look at the festival. The problem is, because it wasn't around very long, there's not exactly loads and loads of footage of it. So if you go onto YouTube, you can find a few bits and pieces of people, home video that's been uploaded with people visiting the festival, but there's not a comprehensive guide to it, and there is no comprehensive guide to the collectibles. But I do know at least 2 people who collect Festival of Britain memorabilia. I have in the past seen it. There's like, I've been to like the I was at a museum fairly recently. It wasn't the Museum of Brands, although they did have a bit of the festival stuff. It was one of the other museums in London, and they had a whole Festival of Britain section of stuff from it, which I was really impressed with. And here is the last, I believe, book on the Festival of Britain, The Lion and the Unicorn. Symbolic architecture for the Festival of Britain. So quite a nice glossy book here. I said it was something that sort of swept the entire UK, and it's difficult to understand that these days, you know. But you know, all the kids' comics like had a Festival of Britain cover, for example. There's a very beautiful issue of the Mickey Mouse Weekly comic, the British one, which has got the Festival of Mickey looking onto the Festival of Britain. Just fantastic. Now these 2 books, there was TV Cream Toys and Great British Tuck Shop. Now these TV Cream used to be a website. I don't know if it's still around. These are a little bit dirty, these, but it was nothing that you hadn't seen before, but they sort of brought quite a bit of these like old classic, in this one, old classic toys. They sort of not reinvented them, but brought them back and reminded people about them. And it's just a good little book, you know. And they did a similar one, which we'll have a look at in a minute, for sort of tuck shop stuff as well. So it's late 60s into the 70s, early 80s. There's all that classic sort of era. Or quite collectible nowadays, of course, because you know, well, it's of that time, isn't it? You know, this stuff is 50 years old now, or coming up to it in a lot of cases, and it's like modern day antiques, isn't it? So yeah, so they did TV Cream Toys. That was the first one, and then this was the follow-up the following year, which was the Great British Tuck Shop, which was more like retro vintage toys and crisp packets and stuff like that, which is also, I think, sort of super cool to have a look through. And you know, this is all still quite collectible, this sort of stuff. Now it's a Dalek Death Ray, quite rare. Yeah, all very scarce, but we saw a lot of it in my I did do a video on the Museum of Brands on my other channel, so if you're interested in this sort of stuff, old packaging and sweets and stuff, do go and check that out, because it's amazing what they've got. Absolutely amazing. But anyway, I thought you'd like to see that, because that's a great book. This is a great book. I don't think either of these are too difficult. Once again, they were both remaindered. They didn't do that well, although, you know, I bought them when they came out. They did end up getting remaindered. I think mid-90s, I think they were published, maybe even a little bit after that, more like 2000s, but good stuff anyway. It's sort of recommended, those 2, but they do need a good clean. Now this next one, I did pick up second hand. It's the book on the wire, and I've actually got this in paperback now, but it's this was an exclusive edition, and look, it's got that horrible stain on the front, so I'm going to clean that up as best I can. And I've just realised I actually have some sandpaper, so we're going to do a number on this one. So I think what we'll do, we'll take out, because as I said, it's not like it's a collectible book or anything like that, but I would like to get that stain off, so we'll brush the edges first of all. I don't think there was any sort of marks inside. This is a great book on a great TV show. The Wire was just fantastic. But it's got splashed with coffee or something. So one thing I have done in the past, and this is going to be, I mean, it ain't going to make it any worse, is it? But I've got, this is very fine sandpaper, and we're just going to give it a little rub and see if we can rub down the stain a bit, see if it does anything at all. Don't think it's going to do much, do you? suppose it makes it less pronounced. It's looking better. Yeah, it's definitely looking better. Let's try it on another bit. That bit there, which is well, what do you think? It's still there, isn't it? But is it any better? Well, it's less pronounced, but you can still clearly see where it was. But I think it is slightly less than what it was. The only other thing I've got is my soft rubber here, which is another thing I can do to see if that lightens it at all. But I think the coffee, or whatever it was a splash of, actually is like soaked into the edge of the actual paper. It's not like we're cleaning off one edge, so I don't know if we're going to be able to get it any better than what it was, but we'll just give it this rub for a minute. Well, there we are. I think that's as good as we can get. It is lighter than what it was, and I think the book is definitely, yeah, it's still absolutely fine, and it's for the content, which is just fantastic. What a great series The Wire was, and I don't want to get shot of this because it's just a great book. But I'd say it's not a big collectible or anything like that. It's just that sort of coffee stain or whatever it was. It was a splash or something accidentally went on it, and does sort of spoil it a bit. But there you go. We did our best, didn't we? That's the way to look at it. It doesn't look quite as bad now. Right, on to another real dog. This is my original copy of Watchmen. Yeah, so Watchmen. I remember buying this one. This is the original cover. The later one has sort of the smiley face on the front. And when I bought this one, it had just been published in the UK as a graphic novel. It had already come out in individual comic book form. And let us see, when was this? 1986. Published 86, 87 in the 12 issues. This is the paperback, the first printing of Watchmen ever. And when I bought it, who should be in front of me in the queue but Alan Moore? And when, in London, this is in Forbidden Planet, back in the day when they weren't anything like they are today. And I remember them saying, "Bye, Alan, see you later." Like, yeah, it was him. And I was like, Christ, it's him, you know. I got to meet him later on at one of the UCACs, and I met Dave Gibbons as well, a couple of times, in fact. I was quite, well, not starstruck, but I was a bit like surprised, you know. This was a great book. Thames and Hudson again. It's a book on art. I think my spine is ever so slightly sun-faded, which is unusual for green. But once again, it's not like it's a collectible or anything, but it is a great book on art in general as a subject. And it's, you know, you don't need many of these. You only need one sort of really good book on art, and this is, you know, in general. And this is exactly what this one is. It's a great book. You got a lot of book for your money, shall we say. Yeah. Very nice book, that. And not in bad condition, it's just got a bit of dust on the top. Not sure if it's still in print, this. I'd be surprised if it wasn't. Yeah, so that will just need a slight, heavy, a slight polish in a minute. Right, the next one is a series of cartoon books called Fred by Rupert Fawcett. Now, I really like Fred. I don't think they're still going anymore. Not sure if Rupert Fawcett is even still around, but I just loved Fred. They were like one pages. It gives you an idea. You can open them at any page and they're just fantastic. Absolutely brilliant they are. I do like Fred. Just great, aren't they? There's one really great one where he's admiring his cornflake collection. Honestly, they're just great. So I've got 4 Fred books. I think they published these, sort of hark back to the tradition of there would be like a humour table at Christmas in any bookshop, and Fred was a mainstay for a while. I have no idea how many they did. I've never even researched them. I think looking through these, I wouldn't mind getting like the complete Fred, and there must be one. So it says the collection for 96, and that one it says the new collection for 97, and the other one I've got is a collector's edition. The very best. Oh, this is a very best of. So there's probably some duplication. All quite dirty, as you can see, so we're going to give these a good polish in a minute. They're going to really need it. And there is one more, which is this one, which is the best of Fred, 180 cartoons. So I don't know whether this is all of them. It says the best of, it doesn't say the complete, which is sort of what I'm looking for, really, you know. I wonder if they ever did it. I shall have to look that up. Well, there's a few there. Look, Carry On Fred, At Home with Fred. We've got Pure Fred and the One and Only Fred. Probably quite forgotten these days, but there you go. I liked him. Right, a couple more books still to go. So we've got another beautiful hardback on Edward Bawden again. This is Edward Bawden's London. I believe they did another volume, which was Edward Bawden's Kew Gardens, because he did loads for Kew Gardens. But he was London. He lived in London, and a lot of his stuff is London related. And just a great book, this one, as you can see. I said he did lots for the London Underground. Just really like his style. Yeah, he has some Underground posters that he did. These have been re-released now by London Transport. Lots and lots of book jackets, which are great. I guess he probably is an acquired taste, but he's one that I just really like. I like designers of this period, and he's one of the good ones, in my opinion. I said there's another book on his Kew Gardens stuff, which I haven't actually got, but similar sort of vein. It's a nice art book. We won't be polishing that one, but there was a bit of dust on the top, which we've got. Now we've got one more book, which is back to Star Wars again. So this was the book that relaunched Star Wars collecting in the mid-90s, and sort of confirmed everyone who'd been collecting it for years. It sort of confirmed that they weren't going mad, because there was still people into it. So yeah, Concept of Screen to Collectible, once again by Steve Sansweet. This is my original one. This was read to death, I can tell you that. So it's in a bit of a sorry old state, so I'm going to actually clean the boards as well as the top edges. Oh, that's dusty. That's already looking much better. Cool. Let's just check inside. Yeah, this is a great book. Sort of highlights from his collection. Bringing it all back to a new audience, as it were. Right. Now, I'm just going to do the inside of the wrappers here. And in fact, before I make a start on this, let's change the camera a moment. There we are. So hopefully you can see what I'm doing a bit better now with the polishing bit of it. So I've done those insides, and I will put the book back into its dust wrapper so we can polish the outside a bit clearer, easier rather. But when this one got published in paperback, I think we just sold hundreds of it, because it was the only book of its sort out, and there was nothing else on Star Wars collecting, and obviously it filled a hole in the market. It was a bestseller, but this is when it first came out, and I was blown away by it. It really was quite something, and you can see why. Fantastic book, really. Okay, it's got the classic running out of room situation. This one we can't do because it's got a matte cover. These Fred books were in a bit of a state though, so they all need a very, very good polish, really. Yeah, I'm going to do some research on Fred when I get to editing these videos, and see if there are any more out there. There must be a few more than what I've actually got, I think. But I'd love to know if he was still going. I don't think he is, because I would have come across him. Nice sticker mark in the corner there that we're getting off. Dirty edges here. Yeah, this was quite a dirty book. It was had lots of dirt on it, marks and sticker marks and all sorts. Quite a bit to do on this one, actually. There we are. That's much, much better than what it was. Lovely. Now, this is probably the best of the ones that I've got. Maybe I picked these up at a jumble sale or boot sale or something like that. Really can't remember, but I always knew always remember enjoying reading the cartoons. They're fantastic. But yeah, it'd be nice to find out if there was some sort of comprehensive book with them all in, maybe, you know. Okay. Now this one won't need any extra, just a cursory once over, I think. Lovely. Now, this Watchman, once again, can't really do a lot about this. This is my reading copy. I go back to Watchman once every few years, and I last read it about 3 or 4 years ago. Still absolutely stunning. I love it. I love the Zack Snyder movie as well. I think that's a great film. Now, I'm going to get a clean bit of cloth here. But yeah, I think the Zack Snyder Watchmen movie is highly underrated, and I just loved it at the time. I think it holds up very, very well today. And it's a great superhero film. Here we are. This one wasn't bad. It just had a few like reading marks on it, or it's been thumbed over the years. It's a good book, this. Lovely. Same with this one, real classic. Toys of that particular era, so the early to late 70s, really. The whole decade is encompassed there. With some very nice photography from the website. Lovely. Don't think this one's too bad. Yeah, so next week we'll either do the next and final 2 boxes of large format books, or if I get a chance I will dig out some more paperbacks. It just depends how things go. But I hope you've enjoyed this. We haven't done a large format book for quite a while, have we? So it's good to get some of these out again. And once again, some needed a lot of work, others were, virtually new. They were absolutely fine. But certainly some good stuff in here, and I've enjoyed looking over them again. Hopefully you've learned a little bit as well. You found it quite interesting. Some of my other wide-ranging tastes, I suppose. I bet you didn't know I had a thing about the Festival of Britain, that's for certain. Right, I think this one's absolutely fine. Just give it the cursory once over. Same with this one. So yeah, if you have enjoyed today's video, do please give it that thumbs up. If you've not already, do please hit the subscribe button for regular book cleaning action, at least once a week. And I shall look forward to seeing you again in 7 days with another video. Bye.